What's going on, everybody? It is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, I'm your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose on Twitter. Joined here by Brian at BrianJesterFF on Twitter. How are you tonight, man?
What's up, Moose? Another big hockey night before NBA is back in action. We got some big prizes on both sites, and I know a lot of our members are trying to get more tickets for tomorrow's big contest, especially on DraftKings. So, yeah, it's a good hockey night, and I'm feeling good.
Nice. It's always good to hear. And I don't know if it's so much going to be a good hockey night. It's more of a NBA hockey night. We'll get into it soon, but normally, you and I always used to talk about beforehand. You could set your lineups at 3 p.m. whatever and be completely fine. But I guess ever since COVID and all this other kind of stuff, it's almost now turned into NBA where you need to be around not only for lock, but for the lock of every single game that goes off. Or it's nuts.
Dude, it's so wild. And I think tonight with the NBA All-Star break, the NHL is like, we got to pick up the slack on some of these late news and inactives and lineup changes that tonight's going to be the most chaotic night of the season. I mean, we got, and we'll talk about it here in a second, but injuries and line changes, all kinds of crazy stuff happening. A couple lines that are just wild for DFS purposes that rank highly. And, using the lineup builder or hand builder is going to be tricky regardless.
Yeah, and, as we see on here, I do have the line stack dashboard up. One of the things that, it's very confusing tonight, that's going to definitely something you need to think about is, Brian, we were talking about it earlier, is Colorado. And the Colorado line one is a little bit different. They definitely are not doing the traditional line, and they have, it's 3 wingers. And so how do you handle something like that?
Dude, it's pretty nuts. So McKinnon likely out again tonight. I think they expect him back March 10th at the earliest. So, and Colorado changed their lines up last game too. It's not like they just ran the same line the entire game. So we could even see some intra-game changes to these lines as well. But the initial thought is how they're going to run out their lines is the 2 big guns, Rantanen and Landeskog, like we normally see on line 1. But Rantanen is going to center them, and Nichushkin, who I assume I pronounced every single one of those names wrong, is going to be up on line 1 as well. And all 3 are listed as wingers. So that's interesting, right? Fortunately on FanDuel, right, we get the 2 utility spots. DraftKings, we do get the 1 utility slot. But instead of, if you have the concrete thinking of building NHL lineup center, winger, D, that might not be the case tonight because their center in real life is listed as a winger on DraftKings, and they may not even stay that way the whole game. So it's pretty wild. And as we get into the builder recognizes this, and once we build some lineups, you'll see that how it handles the Colorado stacks.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see how that turns out. So just again, guys, if you're just now joining in here, we're OccupyFantasy.com. If you like what you see here, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe and bell notification. We're gonna be doing these streams at least like 5 to 7 times a week is what we're shooting for. And if you have questions about any of the slate or anything like that, you want to comment on Brian's hair, go ahead and say something in the chat.
Please don't.
Yeah, don't actually do that. So let's take a look here. Let's just jump over to the builder, Brian. If you're cool with that, I'm cool with that.
Let's do it.
Cool. So do a little transition here. There we go.
That magic production value you're getting out of this free stream, everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so funny because I have to click like 6 buttons and I have to do it in a certain order. It's like, all right, I really hope I get it right every time. And then because the YouTube, like on the stream on the other monitor, is delayed, and I look and it's just like, yeah, I killed that.
yeah. For those who don't know, YouTube is like 10 seconds behind our real life stream. So it's always nice to see us talk about it and then actually, there it is in real life. Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, awesome for everyone that's here. And let me do one other thing here real quick. Save this. Perfect. All right, we're good to go. So I have up here on screen is the lineup builder, and if Nightbot, let's see if this works. Again, Nightbot is it's just now joining here. Let's see if I can get this to work. If this works.
We know Nightbot is very rogue when we're on Twitch, so I can't imagine it's any less rogue here on YouTube as well.
Of course. Why would it not work? Thank you, Nightbot.
Because it's Nightbot. The Nightbot doesn't work yep, did not work. Okay, so anyway, while we try to get that figured out, let's go to the multi build tab here. Let's just check thumbs up a couple guys, get our usual stack settings, our full stacks, and just build. And I want to see how it handles this Colorado situation. And for those who don't know, OccupyFantasy.com/lineup builders, where you can learn more about this builder. It's the same builder I use. The one I used to win the 20K GPP last week. One I used to optimize and get the Fantasy Hockey World Championship qualifier last Thursday, and then of course to win all the other great contests we've won here at Occupy Fantasy. OccupyFantasy.com/lineup builder.
Yeah.
And Nightbot did work, Moose. It's in the chat now. So
yes, Nightbot is definitely struggling right now. So all right, so I just thumbed up 2 decent goalies that aren't over 15%. I changed the salary down a little bit. Put it randomizer on high, full stacks, no defense and utilities.
Yep.
And then we're gonna go into our stacks of 4 center winger, all this other stuff.
All the good statistics, all the good settings. And for those, if we're just flying through this and you're wondering why, one, check out our free strategy guide, OccupyFantasy.com. It talks about how to build NHL lineups, and we've incorporated that into the builder. If you want to learn specific strategies for the builder, check out last week's stream. We did one Monday and Friday. And also, if you have access to the builder, there are tutorials that talk about these settings. But the ones that Moose just clicked here on screen are the ones that we find to be the most optimal for high risk, large field contests.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So let's see here. It's still building, and I forgot to set it to 150.
Yeah. Well, while we're setting Moose and running some more lineups, another issue with tonight, we talked about the chaos, are the injuries. Vegas has a couple injuries to monitor. San Jose has an injury to monitor. I think there's one other team that has an injury to monitor. It's, just pure chaos tonight. Absolute chaos. So once we build these, we can show you how to react to those late news.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So let's see here. Still building. And excuse me here. Perfect. Yeah, and like I said, Brian, what we talked about before, one thing you like to do is limit 1 center per your stack. So we can always go ahead and talk about that once everything's built.
Yeah, it's really interesting tonight because you might not want that because of the amount of the Colorado lines. At least see what's possible. You might have to hand tweak some afterwards, but this is the rare slate where you might have 2 center lineups. It's funny. We talked about it last week, how Matt, who's one of our Discord members, a top 10 Roto Grinders ranked NHL player, has won a couple GPPs this year. A lot of his research this year showed that 2 center lineups don't really win that often. Probably not as often as people play them, which isn't that often in the first place. And then on FanDuel over the past week, it's won twice. So pretty interesting, small sample size there. But again, we do think it is a situation that you would typically avoid.
Yeah. And while we're still waiting here, Cody says goalie Price or Peterson?
Yeah, which site, contest type? That'll help us out some more.
Perfect. All right, so it's all set up here. We go to the team tab and just sorting. It's got San Jose at 54%, which is definitely a lot, and Colorado at 28%.
Interesting. So let's go to the card view because I do want to see how this lays out some of these Colorado stacks.
Okay, so we're set up here in the card view.
And as we look here, again, we're like 10 seconds behind, so I'm waiting to see this, but we're looking for lineups with the 3 wingers from Colorado 1, potentially with their defender Girard as well in the power play 1, and to see what kind of lineups are being set up like that. Cody says he's playing FanDuel, only 1 lineup. Price or Peterson. I think the model has Peterson ranked higher, so I would go with him.
Cool. So let's go ahead and we can actually just search and filter out these lineups. So who are the 3 wingers you said again?
So Rantanen, Landeskog, and
hold up. You
say
said that way too quickly. No, I can't even say the names. How can I spell them?
Good question. So Rant, R-A-N-T, and then Landeskog, L-A-N-D, and then Nichushkin, I assume, N-I-C-H.
Yeah. Okay, so it looks like there's only 5 lineups that have them in it. Those 3 players.
Interesting. I do see a couple actually in here too that have the power play 1 with Burakovsky as a winger too. So it's interesting. So, but as you see here, we have 2 center lineups, and what's going to happen with these are we're ending up with complementary power play stacks that have 2 centers on the same power play.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing. I mean, you want the power play stacks, which is why we went back to full stacks in our settings, which was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just looking here, and maybe you do end up with some mini stacks or whatever it may be. It's like the one that interests me is this third lineup we have, right? Where we don't necessarily have 2 centers from the same team, but the one off is a center, which isn't necessarily a winning lineup construction. But again, this is a unique slate where we're getting 3 winger lineups. So you see these other ones are, if we get 2 centers from Arizona, 2 centers from San Jose. Really wild slate. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, and then I was actually thinking, now, do you think we should go back to the stack set instead of doing 100% 4-3-1s? Maybe we do something else. Maybe we do like a 4-2-2 or something like that.
Yeah, you could do 4-2-2. Because that could really work too. 4-2-2s or 3-3-1-1s. Like maybe there's a night where we do more of those. I do like that idea. And we got some questions in the chat, Moose, it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So Timothy says, what are you doing with Edmonton tonight, Brian?
So Moose, this first run, what was our exposure to Edmonton?
Let's see here. We go back to the team. Edmonton was 27%.
Yeah, and I think that's right in line with how, pulling up here on my end, I think that's right in line with the projected ownership. So the crazy thing about them is that their team total is so much higher than everyone else's. Their team total is 4.42 as of 6 p.m. The next highest is basically a full goal lower, the St. Louis at 3.59. So expect them to get ownership, but with the line uncertainties, I mean, they had some crazy lines last game. Not sure how they're going to play it tonight. That may actually help us some, and we probably just end up seeing McDavid by himself owned like 50%.
Yeah.
So I think I'll stack them normally, kind of be in line with the field, but try to guess or be near the computer, near lock to see what the lines or setup are going to be.
Yeah. Jerry says, I just ran a 20 build, got a lot of EDM 2 centers with Drysdale and also a few San Jose 2 centers. So yeah, it's going to get weird tonight, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'd like that idea, right? How many people are going? So Edmonton, popular probably, I guess, right? But the one way to get unique, we do know, is playing their power plays. And if you can get 2 legit centers like McDavid and Dries together on the same power play, combine it with a 3-winger stack in Colorado, that's a really interesting way to approach that construction. So I think the builders picked up on that as well. Didn't pick up on in this particular build, but Jerry, I think that's actually a good idea.
Yeah. And Ricardo says no DK. Basically, you can take the same strategy we're doing here and apply it to FanDuel. Maybe a little bit different. The only thing I would say, Brian, is, which he makes a good point, is there's one guy here that is, what's his name? Tarasenko, I think his name is. That's just going to be so vastly different on DraftKings compared to FanDuel.
Yeah, pull up the player pool really quickly here in the builder. Tarasenko, for those who haven't played the last couple slates or don't know much about hockey, a really good winger. And he made his debut, I don't know if his debut or came back from injury, whatever it was, a couple games, or a couple nights ago, maybe yesterday, when I lost track of time. His first game back recently, he was 2,500 min price on DraftKings. Obviously, people played him. They didn't even increase his price that much tonight. I think he's 4,200. FanDuel, he's 6,900. Nice. So he'll be, owned like he normally should be on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, we project him to get up to what, it was like 30% or something?
Yeah, right now he's projected for 31% ownership.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, given how we know people play NHL DFS, I'd be surprised if he's not higher and people just play him as a one-off, right?
Yeah, I definitely think, because you figure people kind of strategies out now that you want your cheaper player in as your one-off, and so you see a 4,200, they can just jam him in first as the one-off. Yeah,
we've seen that before too. And maybe we do some FanDuel, because we focus a lot of stream on DraftKings. Maybe we can switch over to FanDuel just to see how the stack distributions vary for tonight.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and I'll just change over to FanDuel here. Thank you all for, while we're switching over, I just want to say again, thank you all for joining the stream. We're here for another 15 minutes or so where you can we're breaking down the lineups. If you have any questions, definitely go ahead and ask. Perfect.
Yeah,
so we are up here. What were you going to say, Brian?
Moose, while you get that set up, we can go with the same settings. We'll just go straight 4-4 stacks because we know that's the optimal leverage on FanDuel. So let's run the same settings we do on DraftKings on FanDuel, just with 4-4s. And I'm actually going to post a link. I see we got a decent amount of people in here watching. And I actually got a few DMs today about people playing NHL for the first time. They've seen our success with the builder. There's no NBA tonight, so they're going to play some. So I'm going to throw the link to the strategy guide in the chat. That way people can read up. Really quick read for the optimal way to build these types of lineups for NHL.
Absolutely. Perfect. And again, just another reminder for NHL, if you're here playing new, definitely keep an eye on goalies. It seems like at the blink of an eye, they can be swapped out very quickly. I know that happened in Vegas, 4 nights ago. Fleury was supposed to start, and then 10 minutes before the stream, or before the game, they switched out to the backup, and that costed me the GPP.
Yeah. Again, this was back in the day, right? And I said back in the day, literally a year ago. We could just set and forget it at 3 p.m. and we might have one scratch. But now all the shit is changing. Coaches are getting more, confidence in not telling people who their goalie's going to be right until game time. So, just again, this is the ultimate slate to watch out before lock.
Yeah. And Cody says, what's your favorite one-off on FanDuel?
I don't play one-offs on FanDuel, really. If I do, it would be a defender. So look for the highest rated defenseman that fits your build. If you're not doing 4-4 stacks, do a 4-3-1, and that one should be a defenseman.
Cool. So we sort here by team. San Jose 36, Vegas 27, Edmonton 26, Colorado 23.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. I'm looking here, and if we look at projected ownership by lines on FanDuel, if we run this, we're going to be way under. We have Edmonton at like 78% combined ownership between their 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that's going to be McDavid. People are going to play McDavid. It's going to be the first person they fit into the line, and we know that's going to be the case because FanDuel is even easier to fit teams in because of the way the pricing is. So the way we're running this, we're going to be way under on Edmonton, which I think Moose, given a high risk approach, anytime a team is one goal higher and has high ownership, we're going to be underweight on the field in a variant sport like hockey.
Yeah, I mean, again, we always talk about it where no matter what hockey, so many things can happen, especially with the way that it's so correlated. You can have a four-man stack absolutely go bonkers, and if they score 1-2 goals, and if all your players are a part of that, you're looking great compared to a team that scores 4 or 5 and it's all spread out.
Yeah, I mean, again, things are so crazy in hockey. They could put 40 shots on net, and Matt Murray could save 39 of them. Not saying he will, but I'm also not saying I'm not playing Matt Murray tonight. He's the ultimate definition of a hashtag bad play, and he's going to be in my lineups tonight. He's the ultimate leverage play too, Moose, right? Like, if we're thinking about if Edmonton fails, by nature, that means Matt Murray probably succeeds as a goalie. So, God forbid he gets a shutout, like a 35-save shutout, right? You're just lapping everyone to the top of the leaderboard.
And I absolutely hate Matt playing him. I always get it wrong. If I'm thinking, I gotta play him, he does terrible. If I don't play him, he goes absolutely bonkers.
Well, there's no in between. He's either going to score -12 or he's going to get 40. Just be prepared. And tonight, he's probably going to score -12, but just be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, I know another setting, Brian, that we don't necessarily have to put in now, but I know you like to say you don't put in 2 high-owned stacks together, just the way that it can, even though that they can fit on FanDuel even more. So another thing that you could do in here if you're building multiple lineups, go to the even stack dashboard that we have, look at the teams, like I'll just go back here and just sort by FanDuel or DraftKings percentage and make it where you don't combine Edmonton 1 with St. Louis 1, St. Louis 2, all that. So that'll help you get some more better lineups.
Yeah, I mean, literally the top 6 projected owned stacks on FanDuel are the top 2 Edmonton lines, the top 2 St. Louis lines, the top 2 Montreal lines. If we just eliminate any combo of those 6 lines, we're automatically going to have a pretty unique lineup. Add in the 4-4 stacks for leverage. I mean, that's how I would start with FanDuel tonight. So even if you're hand building, like we're using the builder, we're using our model, you're just watching the show, you're thinking about making a lineup or 2 for FanDuel, NHL tonight, and you're gonna make it by hand like 95% of people do. Just start by thinking that, okay, Edmonton, St. Louis, Montreal are going to be very popular. I can still use one of those stacks, but just use a low-owned stack with it. Don't use a high-owned goalie as well. That's enough. Like, you don't have to fade them completely, right? They still rank. I mean, you look at our rankings on our stack dashboard, all 6 of those teams rank in the top 15 out of 30-something stacks. So they're good plays. Just don't play them together.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it looks like it was actually only just 3 teams. I'm curious. I want to run this off again with just some of the settings that we said, where we take a look at the goalies. If we just knock out, let's say, the top 2 most owned highest projected owned goalies, and we'll go to the stack setting here, and we'll exclude those stacks. What were the stacks? You said it was EDM. Was it EDM 1 and 2?
Yep, EDM 1 and 2, St. Louis 1 and 2, and then Montreal 1 and 2.
Montreal 1 and 2. Cool. So we have those here, and we will just hit close, and then build lineups.
And people may ask while we're running this build, like, why did you X out the 2 highest projected owned goalies? And we talked about this in the last couple of streams, where, and we alluded to it here over the last few minutes, how variant heavy hockey is, right? Just because a goalie's 20% owned, he's more likely, his average score is going to be higher than a goalie that's 2% owned. But in a high risk setting, again, we're building these lineups for tournament satellites, contests like that. I mean, very rarely do we actually see a tournament won by a high-owned goalie. It's always, and you're like, why the hell did this guy play this guy? But it's always like a 1 to 5% owned goalies that's at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah.
So, especially on FanDuel, where you can just rack up so many points for your goalie, you're better off just excluding those goalies. Now, low-risk contests, head-to-heads, 50-50s, double-ups, play those goalies at the top of the model that have high ownership. They're high-owned for a reason, right? They going to save a good amount of shots, probably, likely going to get a win, and that's all you need for 50-50s.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would definitely, if you're playing low risk contests either on DraftKings or FanDuel, I would start off with a high owned goalie, put that in first, and then figure out your stacks later.
Right, like I would start with Grubauer. He's 20% projected owned. Colorado is minus 186, or Edmonton is maybe the way to go. As their goalies minus 220 favorite. So obviously you want to start there, but at high ownership, and not to mention, because we don't have it on screen here, but in the model, both Colorado and Edmonton are getting money taken against them in the betting markets. Both the money lines and the opposing team totals have moved against them. I mean, that's just fuel to the fire of fading the high owned goalies.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I just got a tweet here that says Dogecoin is up 17% today. So that's awesome.
So you're definitely going to take some of your Doge money and max the mini max, right?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever bought Dogecoin, but whatever.
But how are you going to buy Dallas Mavericks tickets and merchandise if you don't have Dogecoin?
Exactly. There we go. Cool. So one thing that was interesting is it actually upped our San Jose percent up to 40%.
And that's not surprising, right? Like, we eliminated the popular stacks, the combination, and our model loves San Jose tonight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So, another thing I want to ask you, and you and I, you and Waleed have all talked about it. We never really talked about it on stream. Is when you're doing 4-4 stacks, some sort of game stacking, that 4-4. I've had a little bit of success with it. I was first in the GPP with it, and then that Vegas game with 2 backup goalies scored 47 goals and knocked me to 14th. But what's your thoughts on game stacking, especially on FanDuel, where you can do a 4-4 stack?
Yeah, so I we've talked about this maybe in Discord some. I think you're right. I don't think we've talked about it on the stream too much, game stacking. But I gotta think people think it's a bad thing for whatever reason, right? We rarely see those types of lineups, but we know that it's not a zero-sum game, like League of Legends or something. NHL, the final score could easily be 6-5, 5-4, and two teams go off, and they're pushing the pace. So I actually like game stacks, not from the sense that there's really a negative or positive by playing it together, but I think the field probably doesn't play it as often as it should. I think the field avoids it more, which gives us a little bit of leverage, just because it's still 4x4 stacking. Jack, who won the FanDuel GPP, I think it was early last week or late the week before, for 10K, he had a game stack, and the final was 7-6. So we know it works. And I don't think the field does it, so it's probably a plus EV move.
Cool, yeah. It's so funny because like somehow I'll end up with a game stack on the very first game, and I'll be winning the GP. I'll be like the top, I don't know, whatever. And it's like, yeah, because you have 5 guys with a shot and a block shot, combined 30 points across 10 guys, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I like this screenshot life, but yeah, I still think it's. I'm still indifferent on it, but I'm leaning towards it's probably a good play. Or at least I would at least say it's not a bad thing. Like, you don't have to exclude it. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. Yep. And if we end up leaving it in, we probably have some leverage with it.
Yes, exactly. Got a couple questions here. Cody says, what's your thoughts on Tarasenko tonight?
FanDuel, I would just treat him like I normally would. If I'm playing him, I'm stacking him with St. Louis, his line mates. On DraftKings, again, like we just said, people are probably playing him as one-off more often. So don't be afraid to play him. But if you do, stack him. That way, just hope that he doesn't, get a couple goals that are uncorrelated. If he gets some correlated goals, you're going to surpass those Tarasenko one-off lineups. So,
yeah, exactly. And then Jerry says, last week's stream we discussed building a 20. You recommended using low. What's your thoughts on splitting between 10 lineups, 10 low lineups, 10 medium lineups?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. That's it's an interesting approach, because really what you're getting with the low lineups are really the most optimal builds from the model in the lineup builder. Medium mixes up a little more, gives you a little more diversity. High obviously is what you want for 150. It gives you a great range of lineups, players mixed into different stacks. So I don't think it's a bad idea, right? You get 10 lineups that the model really likes, and then you get kind of that next step down, but a little more diversity. I'd be interested to see how that approach works out, Jerry, to see what you think with those lineups, because I think it could be a good approach, because you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think just, again, but Jerry's sharp. He knows what he's doing. So I would still go through each of those lineups and see if they all make sense in the whole grand scheme of things. So 20 lineups is not that bad to do that. So, but yeah, it should be an interesting approach. I'm curious to see how that'll turn out.
Yep.
Cool. So
I was gonna say this, most with we got a couple minutes left. We still got most people watching. Let's give out some picks, right? And people are here for the picks and who they should play in their lineups tonight. So let's go to the builder and just look at different positions and stacks and say, here's some of the top plays tonight that we think.
Okay, cool. So have it up here, and I have goalies sorted here, and definitely saying not Matt Murray can just don't even recommend him at all.
Again, for full transparency, I am playing him in my 150 tonight, but I think vast majority of people should not play Matt Murray. But most we talked about Grubauer, and I assume his name is pronounced Koskinen, probably wrong. Top 2 goalies in the model, top 2 money lines, top 2 projected own goalies. But again, line moves against them, very, very in sport. Those are 2 guys to look for if you're playing head-to-heads, 50-50 double-ups. However, Moose, I really like the number 3 goalie in the model, who's a little bit lower owned than them and has line movement in his favor, in Cal Peterson for the Kings.
Yeah, he's also good, and I've always had success playing Fleury. Again, just hope he plays.
When he actually starts.
Yeah, when he actually starts, I've always done well playing him. So those 3 and 4, I guess, are our picks for goalies.
For sure. And maybe we can go back to the stack dashboard to get the final stack rankings.
And for that, I'm going to bring our faces on. So, Brian, make sure your face is in the camera. And let's see if this works.
Transition season. Very nice.
So, sorting here by OF Index. Of course, San Jose is leading the model. line 1. I'll actually ask for this, Brian. What do you think about any line 2s? Are any of these line 2s sticking out for you?
Yeah, real quick, I will say San Jose, it's probably surprising to people. The model's been on San Jose for the last week or two. And I think they're in another good spot tonight, and no one's really going to play them. 9% projected owned on FanDuel. They're line 1, despite it being one of the most correlated lines, right? All 4 guys play, well, all 3 guys, Couture, LeBlanc, Kane, play on the first unit power play. Carlson, their defenseman plays on the power play. Pretty cheap stack, very correlated. So them being the top line with just a 2.41 team total, probably one of the best high-risk stacks tonight. And then the second lines, like you said, obviously I like Montreal. St. Louis is going to be popular. And then Colorado, too, might be the interesting one, where people don't know what to do with the first line with the 3 wingers. But you could play Kadri, Burakovsky, Saad, who's still in a good spot. And they're correlated by playing on the same line. So I think Colorado 2 is probably one of the best second lines to play.
And that's funny because their ownership, Colorado 2's ownership, is actually higher than Colorado 1's.
It's got to be because of the uncertainty, right? Like people don't want to play 3 wingers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely very strange.
Knowing that, I guess I'll be playing a lot of Colorado 1 then. And I think the builder's going to give us a lot of that anyways, but lower ownership and get 2 of the top players, 2 of the most correlated players. Yeah, give me some Colorado 1. I mean, again, the model shows it. They're the number 2 ranked stack for the slate.
Yeah, so that's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to clip this and put it on Twitter tomorrow.
After San Jose Colorado stack takes down the GPP.
Yeah, absolutely cool. So, all right, so it's 6:30. I'll pretty much wrap it up. Yeah, if you're new here and you like what you saw, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps us out. Hit the subscribe and bell notification to be notified of when we either upload new videos or go live. We're going to definitely be doing a lot more of these. So I'm glad you all are here. It's been Moose and Brian from OccupyFantasy.com. Have a good night.
Good luck.